Welcome back. Now, despite relief from reduced interest rates and lower inflation, income growth is still lagging behind expenses. According to DebtBusters, South Africans now have 47% less purchasing power than they did nearly 10 years ago. And those that applied for debt counselling in the fourth quarter spend the lion's share of their take-home pay on servicing debt, while a rise in gambling is worsening financial stress on households. Benay Sager, Executive Head of DebtBusters, joins us with more insight. Benay, thank you so much for your time today. Maybe let's get into the key takeaways from that report. I mentioned there that there were so many positive factors over last year, where we saw inflation easing, interest rates coming down. We also had two-part retirement system withdrawals, but it doesn't seem like households are faring any better.
Yeah, I think, thank you for having me on the show. All of the things you said are true, and as this be true at the same time. 2025 was, I think we finished it much better than we started. And I think that confidence does carry over to this year. At the same time, those who do need help and are actually doing the responsible thing in terms of repaying back their debt, I think we're seeing some figures with regards to their financial situation that we haven't seen before. Over the last 10 years that we've been doing the debt index, for example, you mentioned that 71% of the take-home pay is needed to service debt costs. And this is not a number that we've seen since 2017. It's been a long time since we saw it at high level. And you may ask, why is this the case? I think this has predominantly got to do with, since the end of the pandemic, around 2022 or so, lending has been somewhat curtailed, but lending that's being, money that's being lent to people has been lent to a smaller number of people. And as a result, in a way, their debt pile, if you will, has risen much higher than their incomes. And I think this is particularly necessary in terms of borrowing, because incomes haven't really kept up with expenses. And I think that's why you're seeing the situation that you are seeing at the moment.
And I can imagine that also with debt piling and consumers applying for unsecured debt, those high interest rates also eating into their incomes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the different income groups, for example, we track 5 different income groups. And if you look at the lowest income band, you would see that almost 95% of their debt by value would be some sort of unsecured debt, whether that's a personal loan or, store card or something like that. Towards the other end, you look at people who are taking on more than 35,000 Rand, that ratio is only about 40%. But, the interest rates tend to be quite consistent between all income groups. And what we are seeing with unsecured lending, particularly, is that interest rates are hovering around 22% per annum. Now, we must say that has come down a little bit, if you can believe it. Not too long ago, it was about 26%, but still much higher than we would like it to be. And I think that the higher that percentage is, the more the share of your take-home pay you need to service this. I think that's what we're seeing.
You mentioned particular segments of what people earn, right? You touched on individuals earning 35,000 Rand, and those over 40. Those are the people that are seeking debt counselling, right? Perhaps just paint a picture of that segment and the kind of pressures they're under, and what it says about the middle income class in South Africa.
Yeah, I think starting from those taking home 10,000 Rand or more, that group is under severe pressure from a lending perspective. And I think if you start from there and then go up, particularly, I think some of the vehicle debt, it seems to be weighing heavily on that group, the middle income earners. And, part of the reason is because we are seeing higher levels of balloon amounts and, vehicle finance agreements that stretch over not just 4 or 5 years anymore, but 7 or 8 years. And often they'll start at a lower level and go higher. So they'll start at 5,500 Rand per month, and then you end up paying 7,500 Rand by the time you finish. So there's this sliding scale type agreements that seem to become more prevalent. If you go up to higher income levels, particularly those taking on 35,000 Rand or more, because since the end of the pandemic, they have been the most attractive lending prospects. So, if you will, they are the ones actually borrowing all for themselves, for their families, in some cases for their friends, and for their businesses. And I think these are a lot of people are borrowing money in terms of personal loans to actually put into their businesses. And that's why the stress that's coming for that group is coming from that area.
Quickly, before I let you go, another factor affecting disposable income is online gambling, and many reports suggest it's taking a bite out of household budgets, leaving less for essentials like food and clothes. Are you seeing gambling impacting debt levels in the data you are collecting, or how people are paying for their debt?
Yeah, we are seeing this. We are seeing people borrow money, in terms of just before they, we are seeing people borrow money to use for gambling, sadly. We are seeing that, of course, from the bank statements, that what we can see in terms of the way that money is moving. Not large amounts necessarily, but, that money should probably not be borrowed.
Yeah.
We're also seeing that that is taking priority over debt repayments, and people are falling into higher arrears. And I think we all know the numbers. It's been widely circulated over the last few months. As a country, we're talking about this, and I think it's great that we're talking about it because it has reached really significant proportions. I don't think it's something we can ignore because it's everywhere. And I think we really need to take a hard look at, how the impact that this is having on personal and country finances.
Benay, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and taking us through that index. That was Benay Sager, Executive Head of DebtBusters.